myself, here's a man who's worried about death every night. He's worried about starvation. He's worried about freezing to death. And in the article, he said he's very content with the way he's living. He said that he enjoys being alone for some time. He enjoys the solace. He enjoys the atmosphere. It doesn't bother him. And here we are living in the lap of comfort, and we find it to be disagreeable.
Right? Testing. Why?
You want to explain about the pictures?
That's very hard to do, to explain photographs. Number one. Which one is that? That is number 40. Number 40. I called that Harlem Remembered. I was working on a project, and this individual came from behind a wall with a stream and like scared me. And I had the instant to turn around and photograph him. And that's the photograph I took of this individual that frightened me. That's why I call it Harlem Remembered. So you just get an impression of the shelter. So if you walk through, and I like to see these here kind of get an idea of how these work. So when somebody naked actors, nobody knew how to do it. I should have instructions. In order to see it, they could just stand here and move it. And I came up with the idea of lighting them this way, having the light come down through the middle so that there'll be like a reflection, so you can actually see the image. Because without the light, it would be like that. But with the light, set up. This is all figured out ahead of time in the gallery. Oh, this is the person I was talking about upstairs.
She do look naive.
So most of these are like a snapshot of situations I was doing. This is a close friend of mine, and I introduced him to her, and they got married. And then she got pregnant, and then I took them up to a studio and photographed them. These are stamps I had held on for a while. There's a mistake in the stamps, so I always try to publicize the mistake in the stamp. And these are different people who have come through my life. This is the woman I was telling you about in the year 2000 who was kind of like insane. This is her after she got castrated. This couple here came to me photographed as a marriage, but then she didn't like the photograph, so they never came back. These are images of the actual painting that's on the wall. It's like transmutation. And I just had to come up with patterns, work out patterns with this idea here. So I started working with patterns, different pieces combined to make a pattern. These kind of patterns. Then I abstracted the patterns to come in through things like that. This here I initially done for a commission. So all the paper pieces on the wall were basically for a commission, but I didn't get the commission. So I came up with the idea of working with paper, with paint, and then coating it. And I came up with different ways of presenting it. This just the way I wanted to present them, off the wall and kind of like floating. Then it extended into another idea. This is what I used to do. I always was trying to get off the wall. This here is called 23 Lovers and Faith. And the idea with this here basically is that faith is like a fixed thing, and love has to always be stimulated. If love is not stimulated, then it doesn't exist. So, now it's love. And then eventually, it would stop. So love has to always be stimulated. Used to be a close friend. He was a famous artist. His name is David Hammonds. Here he's creating an art piece using basketball and chalk to make an art piece. This here is a friend of mine. He won all the medals done in the Pan Am Games for bicycling in Cuba. So I put the two together. And this was a dancer that came. I kind of like worked with her for a while. And this is like a snapshot of different artists who I've been working with. She's a performance artist. She does a lot of work in Europe. He's a jazz singer. He now lives in England. She's an installation artist. She's a photographer from Austria. He's a street performance artist. So this is the way I kind of like to put the history of my involvement with other people together. So it gives like a chronological data. This is that lady I was talking about who kind of like was totally flipped out. This is when she first came out of the hospital. So sitting in the gallery right after she came out of the mental institution. I said, I'm here. And this is much more abstract here. This is when I started pushing the idea of abstract with the snapshot. So when I would do it, I would photograph my new pieces of the work. See, micro shots of it. And then that becomes snapshots. And this is when I got into a thing called patchworks, where I would take pieces and put them together and patch them together. Actually, with heat, I would weld them together. This is photographic film, graphic arts film. And the exposures range anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. These are slides that were projected onto the film, subsequently developed. This is a story here of a play. The director wanted me to do stills and video. So this is still a piece of it. So it's like a story that goes around. I did it on architectural film. And this is work I was doing during the 80s. I would take photographs, put them on glass, adhere it to it, cut that areas out. And the crack occurred by accident, but it just became a part of the piece. Then I was working in a three-dimensional level. I would cut photographs and put them on pieces and have them come off in the pieces. It's like a floating piece. This is when I was working on wood. Same film as that, but this was done on wood. I would take paint, put behind it, and have the paint come through. So these are the person, this is a TV personality. His name is Tony Brown. When I was in Jamaica, this individual was the leader of the Rastafarians in Jamaica. It was in 1971 that we did these here. This is pushing it a little bit further. And this is Madeline. Madeline is the one who saved me.
I did? I thought it was the other way around.
We saved each other. This I've shown in a larger gallery, but it didn't receive too much. I figured this is my masterpiece, but too many people don't deal with it. Eventually I have to take this up, make a print from it, an actual size print. So I'll probably be doing that when I go up and do the workshop. I could take this work up to another level by sending it through the digital scanning process. Like that one there. And this one here basically should be lit also. It should be lit like that. Because these pieces are designed to be lit from behind. And the same with this one here. And this is, again, playing with designs, with the snapshots. In other words, trying to be creative and give it another flair. This is playing with design, but most people don't see the designs in this. They try to juxtaposition the images. This is the story of my first show of this work here in the gallery uptown, on Broadway, with all the pieces hanging. This is my close friend, Dawood Bey. I've been working with him for about 25 years now. These are photographs of the atom bomb test in the South Seas. A friend of mine was down there and I asked her to get me some photographs. So she met an individual who was actually working at the test site who snuck out the photographs, but these are classified photographs. These are copies of it actually. And this is the keystone of the show. This is the show. It's called the Ceiling Show. It was a way of actually selling the show, but it never really caught on. This was like a PR stunt in order to handle to actually get people to come in and get the media to come in and show that this is like, you come in and relax and hang out and get away from the world and meditate. Then we came up with the idea, well, it'd be good as for a psychiatrist to use off on this level here in order to get the patient to be more relaxed and disgorge information from them. This kind of environment here. I'm going to get up, I get too relaxed here. Again, I've been playing with designs. And I really get into designs, like this. Actually, you can see how I evolved into actually playing with this idea with designs. And then the pieces behind you are things that I really got into. Most of them have lost different parts of it, but it's still pretty strong. That's Basquiat. I did that in memory of him. He was in desperate need of a friend, but I somehow or another failed to connect with him. He used to hang out across the street watching me in the gallery. And all I had to do was go over and just take his hand, come on in and hang out. He'd have still been alive today. So ever since then, anybody to come, I always say, come on, I'll hang out with you. And that's because I should have hung out with him to save his life. So I always feel a little moved by and emotional when I think about what I could have done. And the pieces on this side of the wall essentially is a very central relationship I had with this individual here. Had nothing to do physically, sexual, anything like that. It was just like a very sensual thing. And I've seen a lot in her from her primitive origin. So I always wanted to photograph her. And she hesitantly allowed me to photograph her in my sacred moments. I took the photographs and I did various things with them. This is one of the most interesting things I did with them. This was during a very important change in my life. I had to leave the gallery that I was initially in and go to a foreign space, and she showed up. She kind of helped me through that phase. And these are drawings from my book. I stopped actually taking notes and doing things and start making drawings. So these are photographs from the book. This piece here initially is much more different. It's constrictive all the pieces. Because I always have trouble storing my work. Anytime I store it, something's always happening to it. So this piece had a big address on it. There's more information coming out from it. And this is her again. And story being is that most Korean women was always molested by different foreign people. So they had this unusual characteristics about them. So I put this individual, this little small man here looking at this large woman. Flowers and just like decorative things. So her mind wasn't with her body, so she always managed to protect her mind while at the same time her body was always exposed. That's why she liked looking that way or looking down. This is my close friend Fred and his wife. I was initially attracted to her, very much so, because I like her eyes. She had these, there's an artist named Keen. Read these images of illustrations of little girls with big eyes. So when I seen her, I said, whoa, she was a bank teller. And he was a messenger in the lab that I worked for. So one day she came by and I had a girlfriend, so I couldn't do nothing. So I introduced her to him and subsequently he just latched on to her and took her away. But she became very sad when she got married to him. Subsequently they did break up, but not after they had 3 kids. This guy is, call him Big Brown. He was a poet. He hung out in Washington Square Park during the 50s and 60s. He was like Samson. He was like a black Samson. He walked around, it could be cold as cold outside, he walked away. Like this is a very, very cold day. Some days he would have just a line cloth around his private, walking around all shiny. And he recited poetry. Here he's reciting poetry. He's like taking a puff from a cigarette for the next thought process to come out. He would have a huge crowd around him of admirers. And this is some photograph of a poster of a movie that was called A Man Called Horse. And the poster basically, there's another poster underneath and somebody ripped it. And beneath the other poster, beneath this poster was this thing called Love. So I found it interesting, that's why I photographed it. And this image here was taken when I was in the Army. I had married her when I was very young. And she had just had, what's it called, a miscarriage. She had came over to the Army base and lost a baby at the Army base. So I had to hang out with her, and I was like in a weird space in my head, and she was in a weird space in her head after the miscarriage. So this is like representative of the miscarriage. So it's actually an image that's blue in color because the color was off, and I printed it straight so that the negative part would come out, which was red. And this somehow or another is like an anti-war statement about what was happening during the 70s. So this was done during the 70s. It's like a statement that I was making. Another statement that I was making. I don't know why I make these statements. You know, I'm not really that interested in whether or not people kill each other or not. But I guess it's influence.
You did those two works in the 80s, in the 70s?
Yeah, 70s and 80s. 70s, 80s. And this is me during the 70s, 60s, yeah, 70s. I used to walk around with my camera all the time, photographing all kind of things like that, people. So one day the police said, "Woo!" and I look and they say, "Come here." I said, "Be very careful. Easy, easy. What you got underneath your coat?" So I eased over to the car, and he had his gun, coat cocked, right, ready to shoot me. I said, "Easy, easy." I pulled out my camera, showed him my camera, and then I took a picture of that as him trying to uncock the camera for it, shot himself in the foot. Maybe he was very carefully trying to uncock the gun. So now I'll let you take a better look at the shot. This is a guy who won all the medals, all the gold medals in the Pan Am Games, 7 gold medals. Cuba. His name is Patrick Delano. This is him getting ready to win another race. He's on the last lap. Pieces on the ceiling, essentially is part of the ceiling show also. I always liked what Michelangelo did, and I always wanted to go to the ceiling also. So Madeline gave me a chance to explore publicly.
No.
Yeah, that's the way it works. That's the idea. The world is a different place when you look at it from that perspective. So I had to break the rules of, okay, which way do you put it? You put it the wrong way. There's two sides to the world. You can't stay on the one side and see the other side from the same perspective. Okay. So this man went to the natural.
You start to take it off?
That's today. They're gonna get a head start. And have a little trouble parking the car. And that's the way it is here in New York.
think,
And I'm
yeah,
thinking to myself, here's a man who's worried about death every night. He's worried about starvation. He's worried about freezing to death. And in the article, he said he's very content with the way he's living. He said that he enjoys being alone for some time. He enjoys the solace. He enjoys the atmosphere. It doesn't bother him. And here we are living in the lap of comfort, and we find it to be disagreeable.
Right? Testing. One.